Good morning, Boker Tov. Welcome back to 10 Minutes of Meaning. Tremendous gratitude to Shmuel and Esther Shirowitz, our generous sponsors. Lilo Nishmas, his father Yaakov Yidman Gedalia, and the Schuz of Refuah Shlema of her mother Batsheva Bas Bluma Rivka. This morning, our learning is also for a complete, speedy Refuah Shlema. A young man in our community who had open heart surgery yesterday, Eitan Zev Ben Leah Bina, an extraordinary young man. He should have a speedy Refuah Shlema. As always, please help yourself to coffee and slushies and pastries and water as we feed your body and nourish your soul. We're in Iggeres HaRamban, the letter of the Ramban to his son, the letter of the Ramban to each and every one of us. The Ramban is helping us become a better and better version of ourselves, how to not only manage anger and conquer anger, how to eliminate anger. If we speak gently and softly, then we'll find V'zeti natzal min hakas, will be spared from anger. And in the absence of anger, if we never raise our voice, if we never yell and scream, if we never lose our cool, if we never get angry, then we'll be filled with humility, will be filled with being humble, with Yiras Shamayim, with awe of Hashem. We'll see Him and we'll feel Him everywhere around us. How to be able to live with humility in the posture, in our disposition, in the way we communicate, in our thoughts and our actions and our speech, and how to be able to, with humility, build and enhance and enrich all of our relationships, including, or most of which, with Hashem. And then the Ramban goes on, and he says, V'veizar likros b'Torah tamid. We're really towards the end of the letter. And I bet you're all curious what we're learning next. So am I. Havizar likros b'Torah tamid asher tuchal l'kaima. Person should be vigilant and careful. Likros b'Torah tamid, to read the Torah tamid. Tamid, if I had to repeat if you had to say there's any word that repeats itself in the Ramban's letter more than any other, it's the word tamid. Tisnaheg tamid, shivisi Hashem l'negdi samid. He keeps referencing and he keeps referring and coming back to tamid. Always be humble. Always speak gently. Always feel Hashem is in front of you. Always be reading the Torah. The Ramban is telling us the notion of consistency and constancy, the importance of consistency. We know the Korban Tamid of Baboker and Ben Harbayim is a famous, the Ein Yaakov quotes a medrash. It's a famous Ein Yaakov, but nobody's ever found the medrash. But the lesson is the same nonetheless, which is the rabbis got together. Somewhere was the Hamuak Hotel, somewhere like that. They got together for a conference and to take a vote. Which pasuk is the best summarizes the motto, the bumper sticker of Klal Yisrael? Which pasuk is best summary of the Jewish people? And one voted Shema, and the other voted V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Is it the statement of the unity of Hashem's existence, our theology, our philosophy, what all of Yiddishkeit is built and based on? Shema. Is it V'ahavta l'recha kamocha? It's a Klal Gadol b'Torah, love your neighbor as yourself. And the third came along and said, no, it's the Korban Tamid, the morning offering and the afternoon offering. And we don't have time to be dramatic, but they put it to a vote and they voted the bumper sticker, the motto that best represents, the billboard that best represents what Yiddishkeit, what Torah is all about, is the Korban Tamid. The Korban Tamid. Are you kidding? Compared to Shema, compared to V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, Elamai, what's the answer? If you're not consistent, what are you? If we don't live it regularly, you can't be a parent some of the time. When you're a parent, that's your identity, it's who you are, it's the responsibility that you bear. You're not married part of the time. When you're married, it's your identity, it's who you are. And Eved Hashem, to be an Eved Hashem, to see ourselves on a mission of service to Hashem and to repair and redeem His world, is not when it's convenient, it's not when we are in shul before we go to work, it is Tamid. So the Ramban keeps coming back to Tamid. Tamid, constant, consistent, over and over and over. So here he says, Zavar likros b'Torah, Tamid. Person should always, Tamid, always, likros b'Torah, asher tuchal l'kaima, so that you can keep it. Now, it's a funny thing. Why does the Ramban use the word likros, to read from the Torah regularly? What would you have expected the Ramban to say? To learn from the Torah regularly. Every morning, every evening, as often as you can, as long as you can, when you're not doing another reasonable or justifiable activity, you should be learning Torah, engaged in Torah learning. So you'd expect the Ramban to say, be a masmid tamid in limud Torah, learning Torah. But instead the Ramban writes, Havizar likros b'Torah, be somebody who reads the Torah. Why reads the Torah? Any thoughts? Likros as opposed to... So Rav Dan Segal in his commentary, Iggeres HaRamban suggests that maybe to learn Torah at the level of Iyun, to be learning at a deep level, you can't do Tamid. To be able to maintain that level is something that you can't do constantly and consistently. You can't do always throughout the day. but minimally likros. Likros could mean to be reading, to be reciting. You could be online at Disney or Epcot. You could make the best use of the lines. I must have done something wrong. I was punished the last 2 days to have to be there. Baruch Hashem. I escaped and got back last night and left them there. Hopefully they're not listening or watching right now. But I thought to myself, you could have finished a Seder of Mishnayos on those lines. Mamish, you could make a Siyum Disney. What a Siyum it would be. Mamish, unbelievable. So likros, you can't always be ma'ayin, but you could be at a red light. You could be, what are you listening to when you're in the car? What are you doing when you're shopping? Likros, that level of learning is something somebody could be doing. Have izar, be vigilant. When you go press play, what are you listening to? When your mind is lost in thought, where is it escaping to? Are you considering the lesson that you learned, the parsha, a good question, a good answer, a dvar Torah, reviewing a halacha? Look, avizar, it's a vigilance, it's a mindfulness, it's a mentality. That tamid, the Torah is the filter, it's the prism, it's the glasses through which we see the world, we're interpreting the world. Why? Asher tucha l'kaima, so that we can observe it, so that we can keep it. Because after all, what's the purpose of Torah? The Gemara considers which is greater, limud or maisa. Is learning greater or is action greater? And the Gemara concludes in sort of a riddle. It's better to learn because it leads to acting. Is limud or maisa? Lo maramanas lasos. Better to learn because it leads to action. So which is better? The action because the learning leads to it, or the learning because the learning leads to action? It's a conversation for another time. It's a fascinating Gemara. But you see that the goal, the purpose of our learning is to mold us and to shape us. The Torah is there to craft us into being Torah personalities. We're not people who learn Torah. We are Torah people. Become B'nai Torah. Become Torah families. We become a Ben Torah and a Bas Torah. We become people that wherever, whenever, yeshiva week, non-yeshiva week, wherever we are, displaced from our regular schedule, on schedule. But if Torah is who we are and how we identify, Torah is what shapes us, then that's our lives. That is our lives. That's how we make our judgment. That's how we perceive. That's how we analyze and investigate. That's what regulates our behavior and our lifestyle. So therefore, Ashatucha lekaimo, we're learning Torah so that we can observe it. V'kasher takum min hasefer, when you get up from the book, techapes ba'asher lamarta im yesh bo davar ashatucha lekaimo. Here the Ramban says something magnificent. 1,000 years ago, the Ramban says that when you get up from that learning, don't walk away from every time you learn without asking yourself, how will this change me? How will this transform me? How do I implement? How do I execute? What do I do with this? I think, unfortunately, a little bit, we've lost this. Unfortunately. Sometimes we learn to put the check mark. I did the daf check. I did the Amud Shvui check, the Mishnah Yoma check, Mishnah Berurah check, Shnai Mikra check. And then we close the book and we move on. Now I can go watch the game. Now can I go follow the stock market. Now I can go get on the ride. No. Don't ever close the book without saying, how did what I just learned touch me? How did it transform me? How did it change me? How did this contact with the divine, how did this experience of eternity, how did whatever I just engaged or learned, how do I look at something different? How will I practice different? How will I be more mindful? How will I find more meaning? How will I be a better Eved Hashem? Every time we learn, imagine if we incorporated that into Jewish education. We're not just memorizing the Chumash and Navi and in Halacha and in Gemara. Who said what, where, when, how did it happen? Do you have it? Did you take notes? It's going to be on the test. If instead of just the notes in the test, imagine our Rebbeim, who are incredible. We have amazing Rebbeim and Moras and so on. But if they were empowered, not only what will be on the test and did we cover the curriculum, but at the end of every single class, every shiur, to say, okay, before we close the book, how does this change us? How do we live differently? How do we see differently? How do we feel differently? How are we different because of what we just learned? The Ramban 1,000 years ago is telling us, Kasher takum min hasefer, when you get up, before you close that day's daf, before you close that day's aliyah and shnai mikra, before you get up and leave that class, that shiur, techapes. Why do you have to be mechapes? Why do you have to search? Because it's not necessarily right there on the surface. It's not necessarily obvious. Sometimes you got to dive, you got to delve, you got to look for it. What can I implement? What can I do? What can I do differently? That's our mission. Torah is not academic. It's not conceptual. Torah doesn't sit up on a shelf. We learn it, engage it, so it fashions and molds us to be B'nai Torah, to be people, families of Torah, Torah houses, Torah individuals, And what it means is that every engagement with Torah leaves us changed and transformed. And that's the question. Don't get up, don't close that book, don't move on until you've asked yourself, what will I do or believe or think differently now that I've learned that Torah? And analyze every morning and every evening all of your actions. We'll pick up with that Amir Tashem next time. May we hear Besoros Tovos, Yeshua's V'Nachamos.